I'm going to be going over polynomial and rational functions, and this is going to be coming from the practice assignment number 2. So we're going to go ahead and start with number 1. So basically number 1 is just a long division question. So it's asking you to take the dividend and divide it by our divisor here. So what you're going to do is you're going to see how many times the 5x goes into 50x squared. And anytime you're doing long division, you only look at the first term here, so the 5x. So 5x goes into 50x squared 10x times 10x times 5x is 50x squared. And that's when we're going to times 10x by our negative 2. So we're going to get negative 20x. We're going to take this away, so you times it by negative. This is going to cancel out, so we're going to get 0 here. And then positive 20x plus 20x, because we're going to apply that negative, is going to be 40x. And now we just take down the negative 29. So 5x goes into 40x 8 times. 8 times 5x is 40x. And then 8 times negative 2 is negative 16. We're just going to times this by negative. So these cancel out. And then negative 29 plus 16 is going to be negative 13. And because this doesn't have an x here, we can't divide it by the 5x perfectly. So that's going to become a remainder. And we're just going to do negative 13 over 5x negative 2. This is meant to be a 5. And that would be your whole answer there. You can go ahead and pause the video and do question number 2. And then once you're done, you can just press play and see how it's done again. Okay, so 5x goes into 10x. We're going to times 5x by 2x squared, which is going to give us 10x cubed. Now 2x squared times 6x is going to be 12x squared. Subtract this, so 10x cubed, take away 10x cubed, cancels out. 42x squared, take away 12x squared is going to be 30x squared. Oops. And now we take down our 11x. So 5x goes into 30x squared, 6x times. 6x times 5x is 30x squared. 6x times 6 is 36x. Times this by a negative. These cancel out. 11x take away 36x is going to be negative 25x. And then we take down the 24. 5x goes into negative 25x. You times it by negative 5. Negative 5 times 5x is negative 25x. Negative 5 times 6 is negative 30. That's by negative. These cancel out. Negative 24 plus 30 is going to end up being positive 6. And 6 isn't times by an x, so it can't be divided by the 5x, so that becomes our remainder. So it's going to be plus 6 over 5x plus 6. So this is your answer. Okay, question 2. A asks, write out the actual divisor and dividend, and then B says complete synthetic division, write out the actual quotient. So A, when it says write out the actual divisor and dividend, it wants us to write out like x plus or minus something, or x squared plus x plus whatever. So these numbers are just the coefficients for the x variables. So we know that this number has no x variable. So we know that x is going to start here, and then x squared, and then x to the 3, and then x to the 4. So we know that that's what this actually equals. And we know that when we have the negative 5 outside, we know that's what one of the x values are, or one of the factors are. And we know that this one outside is what x equals. So we know that the number for that is going to be x plus 5, because we need what's in here to equal 0, and negative 5 fills in here to equal 0. So we know that that is what our divisor is. So for divisor, it's what is doing the dividing, and then dividend is what's being divided. So our divisor is what's out here. So it would be x plus 5. And then our dividend is what is being divided. So that would be here. So it would be x to the 4. We don't have to do this one because 0 times anything is just 0. So we just skip that and we go to the next one. So it'd be negative 26x squared, negative 7x, negative 13. Okay. So now we're going to go ahead and do B. So for synthetic division, we start by taking this first number down, and then we just multiply this by whatever is down here. So negative 5 times 1 is negative 5. Negative 5 plus 0 is negative 5. Negative 5 times negative 5 is 25. 25 plus negative 26 is negative 1. Negative 1 times negative 5 is 5. 5 plus negative 7 is negative 2. Negative 2 times negative 5 is 10. And then 10 plus negative 13 is negative 3. So we know that whatever is going to be here is going to be our remainder because this is what our constant term is. And we know that if it can't equal 0, then it hasn't been divided perfectly. So there's going to be a remainder left. So the rest of these, this one, instead of being x to the 4, it's now going to be x to the 3 because we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We had 5 terms at the beginning, and we have 5 terms now, but one of the x's are taken out because we have to remember that our divisor is x plus 5. So we're going to be taking out one of the x's when we divide by x. So we're going to get x3, x to the 3, negative 5x squared, negative x, negative 2, and then we bring our remainder down. So then we get negative 3 over x plus 5. So that would be the quotient written out. Okay, now we're gonna go to the next part. This is the last part of the first page. So it's number 4, 5, 6, and 7. So it's asking to sketch each function. You have to include all intercepts and the end behavior and general shape. So I usually write out everything first. So we do degree first, and then I'm gonna write out the leading coefficient. Like I just abbreviate it. You can write out leading coefficient if you want. And then we do x-intercepts, y-intercepts, and end behavior. Okay, so degree, we have to add the degrees together. So 3 plus 3 is 6, plus 2 is 8. So we have a degree of 8, which is even. And basically why that works is because we would be timesing x to the power 3, which is, or x to the 3, and then x to the 3 again is x to the 3, and then x to the 2 is x to the 2, and then you basically have to times those all together because this is still going to be in brackets. So x to the 3 times x to the 3 is x to the 6, and then x to the 6 times x to the 2 is x to the 8. So that's how you get your degree, and that's why you add them together. Next, we're going to look at our leading coefficient. It's negative. That's all that we really have to care about here. So we just know that it's negative. Now x-intercepts, we get them from here. These 3 will give us our x-intercepts, and the reason why that happens is you have to remember that to get an x-intercept, y is equal to 0. So if we just make this 0, we know that if any of these brackets equal 0, then this whole side is going to equal 0 because 0 times anything is going to be 0. So that's why it does that. So let's get our first one, x plus 1. To get that to 0, we have to make x a negative 1. So negative 1 comma 0, that's the first one. Next one, x negative 1. So we know that we have to add 1. So it's going to be 1 comma 0. And then this one is x take away 2. So we know if we add 2 to negative 2, then that will be 0. So it's going to be 2 comma 0. So that's our x-intercepts. Now we're going to go ahead and find our y-intercept. And to do that, you just put x equal to 0. 0 plus 1 cubed is just 1. 0 take away 1 cubed is negative 1. 0 take away 2 is negative 2. Negative 2 squared is 4. So now 1 times negative 1 is negative 1. Negative 1 times 4 is negative 4. And then we have to times our negative 4 by this negative 1 over 4. And negative 4 times negative 1 over 4, the negatives cancel out. And 1 over 4 times 4 is going to equal 1. So it's going to be 0, comma 1. Okay, now end behavior. So the reason why this is last is because we need our leading coefficient and our degree. So if it's even, we know that the arms are going to be going in the same place, but because it's negative, we know that they're going to be facing down. So we can apply that over here. So arms are going to be facing down, and there's just going to be random stuff going on here. We don't know yet because we haven't graphed it. So let's go ahead and start graphing. So let's plot our x-intercepts, -1 and 0, 1 and 0, 2 and 0, and then y-intercept is 0 and 1. So that's going to be all the points. Now we have to talk about what it is going to look like. So to do that, we have to look at the degrees of each of the x-intercepts. So our first one, when x is -1, it is cubed. And a cubed function, we have to remember, looks like this, where it flattens out at the origin or vertex, I guess, and then goes in opposite directions. So we know it's going to look something like that. And we know that this flattening out is going to happen at the x-intercept because that is essentially what the vertex or origin is going to be for that graph. So for example, let's just look at the parabola first. So if we cross all of these out, we can see that if we had f of x equals x -2 squared, we know that this is our h value. Our h value would be 2, because when it's a negative, you go right 2. And then there's no k value, so the k value would be 0, or the y value would be 0. So we know that we go right 2 and up 0. So that is that in x-intercept right there. So that's where your vertex would be for the parabola. And then basically the other equations, we can treat all of this kind of like a vertical stretch applied to that origin. So they're kind of irrelevant once we get to the origin because they're just going to act like a vertical stretch. So the first one, we have to remember that these arms are going to be pointing down like this. We can see that it kind of flattens out here, comes down. This next one is also going to look like that, like so. And this last one is a parabola, and we know that this point is going to be the vertex of it. So it's going to come up like this and hit that and come back down. And then we can see that right here, this would be our parabola shape right there. So that's why you do that, and this would be how you graph it. Number 5, pause the video and do this, and then once you're done, or if you get lost, then just press play and continue along. So go ahead and do that now. We're gonna do the same thing here. Let's write out degree. So we have 2, and remember there's a 1 there, and 2. So for our degree, it's gonna be 2 plus 1 is 3, plus 2 is 5, so a degree of 5. Leading coefficient, we can see that it's positive, and that's all that we need to do to get the end behavior. You can either write that now or you can wait. I'm just gonna wait till the end. So now x-intercepts, we're gonna do the same thing and just get it from here. So the first thing, it's gonna be x is -2, so we get -2 and 0. The second one, it's gonna be x is -1, so -1 and 0. And the third one, x is gonna equal 3, so it's gonna be 3 and 0. And then for y-intercept, we just put x equal to 0. So 0 plus 2 is 2, 2 squared is 4, 0 plus 1 is 1, that's just going to be 1. 0 take away 3 is -3, -3 squared is 9. So now we do 4 times 1 is 4, and 4 times 9 is 36. So we know that these all times together is 36. And then we just have to times it by 1 over 6, which is going to give us 6. So when x is 0, y is 6. We can go ahead and do that. And then end behavior, we just take these. We can see that it is an odd degree. So it's going to be flattening out, or it's going to be, the arms are at least going to be that shape. And then we can see that it's positive, so it just does like that. It doesn't flip direction. We know that the end behavior, this arm's going to be facing down. There's going to be some random stuff going on, and then this arm's going to be facing up. So let's go ahead and graph this. So x-intercepts are -2, -1, and 3. And the y-intercept is at 6. There we go. So for the first x-intercept, where we have a -2 and 0, we can see for that x-intercept, it's going to be a parabola shape. And we know that this arm's going to be facing down, as predicted by the end behavior. And we know that this point is going to be like a vertex. So it's going to come up and hit that and come back down. The next point at -1 and 0, we can see that it's just going to be linear because it's only raised to 1. So it's just going to come up and go straight through. Oh, let me just make that more straight. So that's gonna go straight through. I'm just coming up here, but you want mine's not really straight, but you want this part to be straight that goes through there. Okay, and then the last one is a parabola, and we know that the arm is gonna be coming up like this. So we know that we come down, and this is gonna be the vertex. It hits the vertex, and it comes back up. So this is what the rough shape should look like. And this y-intercept, it doesn't have to look the exact same because we don't go into the specific shape, but you just want to make sure that this is the rough shape that you have. And make sure that you're treating the x-intercepts as like the vertex or origin. Number 6, you can go ahead and try this one. This one's going to be a little bit different. So I'm going to walk this through. But feel free to go ahead and do it yourself if you're confident with it. So let's start out by writing our degree. So for this one, we can get our degree. It's just the highest degree that's here, so it's a degree of 3. Our leading coefficient, that's always going to be your a value, so it's going to be negative. X-intercept, so we cannot get that yet because we have to go ahead and factor this. Y-intercept, we can just put x as 0, so we have 0 plus 0, take away 0, -7. So we know our y-intercept is 0, -7. Now we're going to go ahead and get our x-intercepts. So to do this, you're going to have to do your synthetic division because we don't have a squared, we actually have a cubed. So we can't do this just by like quadratic or factoring, like what plus what equals that. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. For -7, we have plus or minus 1 and plus or minus 7. Hopefully it's going to be -1 or +1 that it gets us to 0. So 1 cubed is 1 times negative, so -1. And then 5 times 1 squared is just 5. -1, -7. So -1 plus 5 is 4. Take away 1 is 3, -7. So we know that that doesn't equal 0. So we know that's not one of the x-intercepts. So now let's try -1. So -1 cubed is -1 times negative is 1. -1 squared is 1. Negative times -1 is 1. -7. So 5 plus 1 is 6, plus 1 is 7, take away 7 is 0. So we know that -1 is one of the x-intercepts. So it's going to be equal to x plus 1. Because if x is -1, then -1 plus 1 is 0. Let's go ahead and do synthetic division because that's just the easiest here. Take the -1 down, and then we're going to go ahead and do -1, 5, -1, -7. Whatever ends up here should end up being 0. So we bring the -1 down. -1 times -1 is 1. 1 plus 5 is 6. -1 times 6 is -6. -6 plus -1 is -7. -7 times -1 is 7. 7 plus -7 is 0. So it did end up being 0, which means that it is factorable. Or it is a factor, I guess, of -7. So write this as our quotient. So it's no longer going to be raised to the 3, it's going to be raised to the 2 because we divided it by an x. So we have -x squared, positive 6x, -7. So that is going to be the quotient. So now we have to factor this out even more. Now we're going to have to do quadratic. So let's go ahead and do quadratic. The thing with quadratic is that you're going to have to take out the negative first so that you don't forget to put it back in. Because when you do quadratic equation, it actually does factor out your equation while doing it. So it will take out that negative and you'll have to put it in after. But I usually just take it out so I remember at the end. So let's go and put this into quadratic. Go ahead and fill it out. So -6 squared is 36. Take away 4 times 7. 4 times 7 is 28. So 36 take away 28 is going to end up being 8. And 4 times 2 equals 8. So we can rewrite this as 6 plus or minus 2, 2 over 2. We have to bring this up here. So now we can simplify the 6 and simplify the 2. So we get x equals 3 plus or minus square root of 2. X is going to equal 3 plus square root 2, and x is going to equal 3 minus square root 2. Square root of 2 plus 3, 4.41, 1.59. X -4.41 and x -0.59. Overall, the equation is going to be, we have to remember that we took this negative out. So we have to do negative times this original factor times x -4.41 times x negative 1.59. So that's basically what your equation is going to look like. First, we're going to have to see what our end behavior is. So we know we have our degree of 3, which is odd and negative. So we know that this side's going to be pointing up, this side's going to be pointing down. So our end behavior is going to go and look something like this. And all of these are raised to 1, so it's going to be linear throughout the whole thing. We have -1, and then we have that, and then we have that. So let's go ahead and do our 1.59. So that's about here. And then our 4.41, so that is about here. And now we know that our end behavior, this arm is going to be sticking up like this, and this arm is going to be sticking down like that. And we know that each of these are linear. Oh, we should also do our y-intercept, which is at -7. So let's just say that this is -7. So it's going to go linear through here. It's going to come linear through here, and it's going to be linear through here. So when it comes up, linear through here, and linear through there. So it should look something like that. Last question for part 1 or the front page. We're going to go ahead, you can go ahead and do this if you're confident, and then just follow back along when you're done. Okay, let's go ahead and write everything out. So it's a degree of 4. The leading coefficient, it's just a +1, so we just say positive. X-intercepts, we're gonna have to factor this to get that. Y-intercept, 0, -0, plus 0, plus 0, -8, so it's gonna be 0, -8. End behavior, it's a even degree and it's positive, so we know it's gonna be like this, and then just whatever happening in between. It's gonna look like that. Now for our x-intercepts, let's go ahead and do that. We're gonna have to do our synthetic division or long division here. So let's go ahead and start with -1 to 4 is just 1. -1 to the 3 is -1 times -5 is 5. -1 squared is 1 times 6. And then -1 times 4, -8. So 5 plus 1 is 6, plus 6 is 12. 12 take away 4 is 8, take away 8 is 0. So we know that our first one is going to be x plus 1, or x equals -1. So we can go ahead and do synthetic division for that. And now let's do 1, -5, 6, 4, -8. Bring down your 1. 1 times -1 is -1. This is going to equal -6. This is going to equal 6. This is going to be 12. This is going to be -12. This is going to be -8. This is going to be 8. This is going to be 0. X to the 3, -6x squared, positive 12x, -8. That's going to be your quotient. You can see that we're still not squared, so we're going to have to do long division or synthetic division again. Okay, let's try positive 1. 1, take away 6, plus 12, take away 8. 1, take away 6 is -5, plus 12 is 7, take away 8. That's not equal to 0. So let's try another one. So we know that it's not any of the ones. Okay, so let's try 2. 2 cubed is 8. 6 times 2 squared, which is 4, is 24, so -24. Plus 12 times 2, -8. So we know that these are going to cancel out, and then we just have 8, -8, which is 0. So we know that the answer here is x equals 2, or x -2. There. So that's another factor here. So we have a factor here, and we have a factor here. So let's go ahead and do synthetic division. Let's bring our 2. And then we know that we have 1, we have -6, we have 12, and we have -8. Bring this down. 1 times 2 is 2. Perfect. And now we're going to have x squared -4x plus 4. Okay. So now we can go ahead and factor that. This is plus or -2, plus or -1, plus or -4. And we know that -2 times -2 is +4, but -2 plus -2 is also -4. So that's what it's going to be. It's going to be x -2 times x negative 2, which can be written as x negative 2 squared. So now if we write our whole equation together, it's going to be x, let's bring our first one, x plus 1 times x negative 2 times x negative 2 squared. And these can actually just add together and become x plus 1 times x negative 2 cubed. So we can see that that is a degree of 4, so it's the same as what we had. So let's go ahead and graph that. So our x-intercepts is going to be negative 1. Oh, I should write that up here actually. And then the other one is 2, 0. There we go. And then our y-intercept is negative 8. So let's just say that this is negative 8. And we know that we have a cubed, and we have a linear, and we know that our end behavior is going to be facing up, and this is going to be facing up. And we know that this is going to flatten here before it comes up. So let me just write that. And we know that this is going to be linear through here. So you can just go ahead and draw that. So we want to make sure it's linear through here. So this definitely isn't neat, but give you a rough idea of what it should look like. And that's all you do for that. So that is page 1 of the practice test. I will be doing page 2, but that is the first page so that you can follow along and do that.